This is one of the most popular cameras ever produced, even earning the title of best-selling mirrorless camera of all time. Still widely used today and highly regarded over 10 years after its release. This is the Sony Alpha 6000, or commonly known as the A6000. This camera was released February 12, 2014. It brought the new, or still relatively new, Sony E-mount system to a whole new level. At the time of its release, it was advertised as having the world's fastest autofocus, hosting 11 frames per second continuous shooting with subject tracking. The A6000 featured a 24 megapixel Exmor HD CMOS sensor, a Bionz X image processor, NFC, an electric viewfinder, UHS memory card support, Wi-Fi remote and picture transfer, as well as HD 1080 video. In fact, for the time, the only thing Sony missed including was an audio jack for an external microphone. So I shot that whole sequence using just the A6000, and I only used 2 lenses. Now, one thing that was a little bit tough is there's no in-body image stabilization with that camera, so it can be a bit tough to keep it steady. But I wanted to challenge myself with just using that camera, alone. Anyways, I used 2 lenses. I used the Sigma 16mm f1.4, which gives you a nice amount of light. And I also used the autofocus a lot, but I did use manual focus a bit with that. And I also used a Canon FD vintage lens, which is f1.4 50mm, and that gave me about a 75mm equivalent on the A6000. It does weigh quite a bit, so that helped me keep those shots a little bit steadier. For lighting, you can see I just put one light just to the subject's right, and there's a grid and 1 layer of diffusion. Another tough thing about shooting this scene is Alex's rehearsal room is quite small. So you can see he's only about less than half a meter away from the back wall behind him. And there realistically is only probably about a meter, maybe a meter and a half in front of him, as well as all his, desk and everything else that's, hidden away, what you're not seeing. You can see a little bit more. If you look over here, you can see what I used for some photos. I use an Octabox. I think it is around a 1 meter size. And that also has 1 layer diffusion, or actually 2 layers of diffusion on that, and a grid in front of it as well, paired with a couple of Godox speedlights. The sensor packed into this camera was actually used in subsequent generations after this, up until the A6700 released in July 2023. And although the video performance was improved with 4K and a lower noise floor, the photos produced in between them is almost indistinguishable, especially in a controlled setting. Speaking of photos, let's jump in. So here I just have the one light source, the 1 meter parabolic off to the subject's right. No other speed light happening here. And we're at 1/500 f1.4 ISO 100. This was my setup shot, and the eye autofocus didn't quite grab. I think the focus is just a little in front of him, or maybe right on the tip of his nose. But it was to kind of set up what's going on. Now I've positioned a little bit more. I've gotten a little better composition. I think I moved the light just slightly as well. I wanted to grab some of these drums, and we're using 16mm 24, so being a little further away from the subject is going to give a more natural looking image. And now you can see I had that eye autofocus dialed in, and this is just fantastic. I mean, over 10 years old, this looks great. If you put this up next to other modern cameras, you would be hard to tell which one is the older one, the older camera. Here's another image, black and white, always classic. I have put a little grain here with Lightroom. You can see I have brought in another speed light off here to the right, just nailing our subject just a little bit to give a little more light on the face and a little more definition on the left side of his face. So here's a nice photo. You can see the parabolic speed lights, parabolic softbox over here on the left. And we'll just keep on going through. Another image, nice, kind of went back to my previous composition. Couple different things. I think I asked him to look angry, look like a monster. I asked him to look like he was dropping the greatest rap album of all time. I really like this image actually. And the focus wasn't absolutely perfect, but it is still very nice, very close. So here we are now with the kit lens, and it's just outside, nothing special here, no epic composition award, sorry. But you can see, even with the kit lens, this camera still does produce a decent image. If you're learning, then this is definitely going to be a great lens and camera to start out with. We are at 50 millimeters to kind of show the difference of the kit lens. And there's 16 and there's 50 with the same preset thrown over it. All these presets are available for free down in the description. And if you subscribe while you're down there, I would appreciate it. Anyways, going along, we have another photo just out of the train window while we were riding along. It's a nice photo. Just, what I guess you would use one of these pocket cameras for if you're just kind of capturing, you're traveling around the world. This is in Sweden, so Jakobsberg is the name of this stop. Here we are in Stockholm Central Station, and I wanted to show the noise that you get at high ISO and higher shutter speeds. So we're at ISO 20,000 and shutter speed 4,000. Strictly to show this off, this is not the settings I would use to shoot this situation. But you can see this green and purple color noise that you get at these extreme settings. So here's almost the same shot with a little more normal settings, ISO 4000, shutter speed 400, and you can see the noise that you get coming in from there. So you still have some of that color noise, and both of these photos are completely raw, so nothing has been done to them in the way of cleaning. Last photo is just a shot from the hip, and it looks like the focus grabbed this tray, sadly a little more than the buns that I was trying to capture. And these are cardamom bulle, which my pronunciation is probably really terrible, as my Swedish could be a million times better, but they're cardamom buns. And you can see we have our baker back there. And yeah, for a walking around camera lens combo, this is still a great performing piece of kit. The price to performance ratio is something you can understand why this camera is so beloved, especially among vloggers, travel photographers, YouTubers, and the likes. The tilt screen, I don't find it to be so limiting. Some people don't like it, but for photography, I actually find it's a little nicer to have than the flip to the side or rotating screen, unless you're specifically doing a lot of vertical shooting. And you have the E-mount, which has so many great lenses. You get this kit lens with it. If you happen to be picking up used, you often get it as well. Although I wouldn't highly recommend it. It does do okay. There's just so much good glass that can be had at a great price nowadays. Anyways, that's the Sony Alpha A6000.
Ready for you.
Ready? Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4.